My God. I'm home. Finally, really did it. You maniac! You blew it up! God damn you all to hell!
Welcome back. It's part 2 of Semi-Retired's Guide to Ruining Your Holidays. As you're listening to this, it's December 27th, so we're ready to now darken the new year.
Probably spent yesterday returning all those gifts that nobody wanted, and now you got free time on your hands, and you're giving it to us, and we're so grateful. Richard, could you pass me that cruet of mulled wine, please?
I have it in a horn.
Fantastic. Delicious.
For our next movie, Dave, you're going to be talking about Looper.
Looper. What a fabulous movie, and about as dark as it gets, it seems to me. And this one is starring Bruce Willis. What's that guy's name?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I can't get his name straight. And the fabulous Emily Blunt in a supporting role. So what's our dystopia here? The movie takes its time getting going because it has to do some exposition so you understand this world. And what you see when it starts off, it's so eye-catching, is you see a guy with a gun, and he's out on the edge of a cornfield, and in front of him, spread on the ground, is a blanket. It's very quiet.
Oh, yeah, the blanket.
The blanket. And suddenly this person zips into existence on the blanket with a hood over his head. The guy shoots him, just basically blows him away with his shotgun, goes over, flips him over, rips open his jacket, and takes out a bunch of bars of silver. And thus we are introduced to the movie of Looper without having a clue what's going on. As it transpires, this is a movie about time travel, one of our favorite topics. And in this world, the present in which we are seeing this event I just described happen, 30 years in the future, time travel has been invented, but it's illegal. And so the only people using it are the mob up there, kind of a Yakuza mafia combo, gangsters, bad guys who are sending their victims back into the present to be blown away by loopers who are like Blade Runners in that sense. They're like hired guns. They're killing these victims as soon as they appear in the present, burning their bodies in some kind of incinerator, taking the silver, which they get paid with, and moving on with their lives.
I love the premise that in the future, it's hard to dispose of dead bodies, and that's why they send them back into the past. Forget the murdering aspect. It's the fact that even if they kill them, they can't get rid of the body.
Yeah, you can't clean up, right? That's the problem. Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's make it talk about paying it forward.
So it is the perfect crime in that sense because the victim disappears. They're nowhere to be found. The looper is paid. At any rate, so that's the time loop in this case. And as we're introduced to the community of loopers in the present in this movie, we become aware of some other possibilities. For instance, at a certain point in the future, these mob bosses will decide to close your loop, which basically means send you back to be killed by yourself because you've done something wrong in the future or they don't need your services anymore. They send you back, you shoot yourself, pull off the hood and go, oh my God, that's me.
It's identified by the fact that you see gold bars
That's
instead
right,
of silver
gold
bars, and
thank
that's
you.
what gives it away. You say, oh, I just killed myself.
I just killed myself. That's it's the gold. Thank you for that. I missed that. So that's right. If the victim has gold bars on, you just killed yourself. So we have loopers. We have the loops who are coming back and maybe you're killing yourself. So you know you got 30 years to live at that point and a bunch of gold. But like the replicants in Blade Runner, you've got a time limit on you. Mind you, 30 years instead of 4, so that's somewhat better. And you discovered that on occasion, when a loop comes back, it will take off and try to escape from its looper who wants to kill it, and that's called letting your loop run. So we're introduced to this circumstance with another looper young character by the name of Seth or something like that. His loop takes off, and he's in trouble with the gangsters in the present who are run by an amazing Jeff Daniels out of nowhere. He's called Abe or something, and he's just horrible. He's pitiless, merciless, horrible gangster. They send someone out to get the loop because they can't have that. You can't have the person for the future running around unkilled, and at the same time, the present looper has fucked up essentially, so they have to clean up all that mess. And there we go. Now that we know how the world of the loopers works, and that takes about 20 minutes.
Do we really know?
Okay, do we really know? Because I'll get to this at the end. Now, on this, of course, involves the enormous suspension of disbelief that comes with enjoying a good time travel movie. So I don't want to spoil that, but there are some interesting paradoxes or paradoxi. Is that right? Paradoxi? I don't know. That's probably wrong. Once we've got that groundwork out of the way, the movie starts to progress. And what happens is Bruce Willis comes back, who is the future self of our young Joe, and he escapes from Joe. He gets, like, he's got it planned. He turns his back as soon as he appears on the blanket, so he gets shot in the back, and the gold bars deflect the buckshot, the bullets or whatever, because the guy's using like a shotgun, a blunderbuss they call it, and off he goes, and now there's trouble. Joe's in trouble with Abe, the Jeff Daniels character. Bruce Willis is on the run, and the story starts to accelerate at this point and unfold. And what we start to understand understand is that Bruce Willis, in the future, he had met a beautiful woman who became his partner, his companion. He says at one point he wanted to have kids with her. And just before he's sent back, she's murdered by the mob in the future. So old Joe, future Joe, Bruce Willis, wants to come back and somehow prevent that from happening. He wants to save the woman he loves, so he has to escape from his assassination on the blanket. And off he goes into the world. Now our Joe, as I've already said, is in trouble, and this whole chase ensues. And there's some terrific moments where at one point, Seth, the one I described, whose loop escaped, his loop is trying to jump over a fence. Sorry I'm jumping around here, but the movie jumps around.
Yeah.
He notices at this point, as he's reaching for the top of the fence, that there's some kind of a symbol carved on his arm.
Address, yeah.
It's an address. So he peels back his shirt cuff, and there's an address carved into his arm, which wasn't there 5 minutes before, long-healed scars. And you go, hold on, where did that come from? You realize in the past, they've got the young Seth, and they're torturing him. As he's trying to climb over this fence, his fingers start disappearing. They start and of course they're well healed. All this happened 30 years ago. And suddenly his nose is missing because they've cut off his nose in the past. He gets down off the fence because he can't climb anymore because he has no fingers. Starts running and suddenly he falls because they've cut off his feet too. As you realize that's happening, it's horrible as I describe it. I get it. It's Christmas. People are feeling warm and fuzzy. But
it's like carving a turkey.
It's like carving a turkey. Think of it that way. It's not far different to carving a turkey. Basically, they just hacked the guy to pieces. So they've killed his present Seth. At the same time, they've killed the future Seth or left him completely disabled. So it's a horrible situation. So there's that little aside. Why am I laughing about it? I don't know. I guess I'm dark. I have no idea.
Well, it's kind of fun.
Richard, help me. So it's kind of fun. We get back to the Joe story, and really the rest of the movie at that point is a race between young Joe, who wants to get a hold of old Joe. Young Joe runs into the Emily Blunt character living on a farm. And the other aspect to the movie here, which I have to mention, is that there's people in this world who have telekinetic powers. It comes across in the beginning, it kind of flies by, no big deal, that it's just a thing, that some people are TKs, they call them, and they can move things around, whatever. The Bruce Willis character starts talking about the fact that in the future, there's a guy called the Rainmaker who's going to change things in the future, and he's going to take revenge on all the loopers or something, on the gangs or whatever. Joe wants to get in the way of that, because I think the Rainmaker's gang who kills his love of his life in the future, if I'm not mistaken. I know I'm kind of balling this up a bit, but hopefully not too badly. So there's this other character, the Rainmaker. Anyways, young Joe shows up out of this ranch because it's near the cornfield with the blanket, runs into the Emily Blunt character, and it becomes clear that her son, if it's her son living with her, has telekinetic powers. And you start to think, hold on a second, maybe this guy's the Rainmaker. At the same time, Bruce Willis has got 3 addresses he's tracking, a bit like the Arnold Terminator guy. He doesn't know which one's the Rainmaker, but he's going to kill all the young kids to make sure he gets the Rainmaker. So now I've really laid it out in somewhat, botchy fashion. I blame it on the mulled wine, Richard.
Yeah, with killing everybody at addresses and the bars of silver, it's sounding a little biblical.
A little biblical. I don't just a little biblical. So there's Bruce Willis on this crazy mission to kill 3 kids because he knows one of them is the Rainmaker. This will help save the love of his life in the future. Emily Blunt, who's the Rainmaker's mother in the present, is trying to save her son. She just thinks he's troubled and a little bit disturbed. Turns out she's telekinetic as well. Somehow she and Joe get into a brief love fest at the house. We get that little distraction. In the ensuing minutes, if you will, of the movie, we can tell that Joe is falling for the Emily Blunt character whose name escapes me. So we wind up in this crescendo of action at Emily Blunt's farm where old Joe shows up looking for the Rainmaker, Emily Blunt's son. He's already killed the other 2 kids incorrectly and feels badly about it. And Joe, who's fallen in love with Emily, wants to save her. So in this climactic scene out in the cornfields, old Joe is going to kill Emily Blunt. Young Joe, to save Emily Blunt, who he's fallen in love with, kills himself, and Bruce Willis disappears. So he prevents the murder of Emily Blunt by killing himself, and so Bruce Willis in the future can never appear. But then you ask yourself, if that were the case, how did he ever come back in the first place? I know I shouldn't do this. I'm breaking the cardinal rule of enjoying time travel movies, trying to think it through. How did Bruce Willis ever come back in the first place to cause all this havoc? Because young Joe killed himself. Therefore, old Joe could never, by definition, exist. Are we following?
Dave, this is so confusing. I want to travel back in time to before this happened and shoot myself.
Yeah, you probably do. I may want to shoot myself when I listen to this recording and think, you know what? That doesn't make any sense at all, dude.
It's easier to watch the movie.
It's easier to watch the movie. So the dystopian aspect is clear. All kidding aside, I mean, this whole business of the assassins from the future, it's a good-looking movie. It's tough. It's gritty. Yeah. Bruce Willis is great in it because he's being Bruce Willis, and that's okay. He's got a limited range, but he's in there, and you believe that he could be that guy. Actually, he shows off some sides of his acting ability that maybe we hadn't seen before because it's kind of a pretty desperate role. All in all, 2 thumbs up for I forgot the name of this movie.
Looper.
Looper.
To go back in time and remind yourself.
So that I know it in time to make this recording. Yeah. Pass the mulled wine again, Richard.
Here's the horn.
I'm dry.
I had to read up on it again to get the premise, but it was a good movie. Yeah.
Good fun.
And again, it's always fun to see what people do, not just with the time travel aspect, but what they incorporate into that, with the whole thing of like sending bodies back to be killed.
Yeah.
It's like they're not coming back to change the past so that they can get rich in the future. They got to dispose of their garbage. It's such a beautiful premise.
You're right. It's fresh. It's original.
It's fresh.
Yeah. And again, why they're being paid in bars is, again, it's part of the whole dystopian aspect of this future world that we never get to live in. And Richard's right. It's so inventive. I recommend to anybody looking for something to do New Year's Eve, maybe snuggle up on the couch, watch Looper,
and see if New Year's Eve will repeat itself.
See if it actually repeats itself. Yeah, crack open some champagne or not. Now, Richard's got one to follow Looper. It's called Never Let Me Go.
This one is probably the darkest in terms of plot and subject matter, but not necessarily graphically. You're not going to see, bunches of people getting murdered.
Richard, I expect no less from you.
If I can punch you in the soul, I think I'll try. So the premise is this is sometime in the future-ish. We're taken to the idyllic English countryside. I'm not going to give too much away because I want people to watch this one. Because if I give the whole story away, you might not want to watch it. But I think it's really worth a watch because it's a very different...
Like the hatchet job I just did on Looper?
Now you have to watch it to understand what the hell you said.
Well, that's a fair point. Maybe you're right. Not bad.
So the premise is that in the future, the rich folks or whatever, the elites, whatever you want to call them, I hate using the word elite, have clones of themselves. So when they fall sick, they can then remove the organs from their clones and put them in them.
Ooh.
Kind of like to prolong their life. And the clones don't know they're clones. The movie starts off and they're like in a school, boarding school, where they're all told they're very special and they're meant to focus on creativity and the arts.
But they're organ donors. Is it,
yeah, but they don't know.
They don't know.
They're basically grown from childhood.
Okay.
They're there to serve, let's call them the originals. And a school teacher comes in at one point and spills the beans that they're there to be organ donors. Of course, gets fired because they're not supposed to know. They're only supposed to know when they get to adulthood. And so the movie takes place a little bit when they're young and then adulthood as relationships begin to blossom. There's a bit of a love triangle thing that happens. It develops from there. But the love aspect of it is, think of like we talked about 1984, where in there's a little bit of a love story that takes them out of the darkness of their world. But there's a little bit of sort of something like that in Never Let Me Go, which of course, as in 1984, doesn't end well. I'll just leave it there.
I was expecting that.
I find it's a very interesting study into the dark side of humanity, where we would be willing to grow someone or clone ourselves only to use them as a spare parts factory. And that part is very dark. And there's a line at one point where one of them says, I thought the art you asked us to do was to help prove our worth. And they're like, no, it's just an experiment. We're trying to see if the clones are really human. And it takes you back a little bit to the replicants. Think of the replicants who are alive. They're not robots, but to the humans, they're seen as lesser life. And so in the movie here, the clones are also seen as lesser life. And they're trying to determine through these art programs, do they actually have a humanity because they're not born in the same way? And the movie goes on through its story as they get older, and some of the characters obviously.
Did you say who's in it?
No, I didn't. It stars Carey Mulligan, Keira Knightley, and Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield became the second Spider-Man after Tobey Maguire.
Keira Knightley, I know. Yeah.
Keira Knightley. Carey Mulligan's been in a bunch of things. She's a very good actress.
Do you ever ask yourself why we're attracted to dystopian movies, or why people like making dystopian movies? What's your theory on that?
I think it's a way to look for hope today. As bad as things seem, there's a lot of shit out there that could possibly happen. Enjoy the happiness you have today.
Of you, Richard. I didn't expect that.
Enjoy the shit you're in now, because it could be potentially much worse.
You know what? You could look at it that way, because I've always been attracted to those stories. End of the world, complete breakdown, utter destruction, what grows out of it. I mean, they've been there since way back with the Time Machine, which we talked about, looking ahead at this horrible future with a small upper crust living on the surface of the planet. The Eloi up top, the Morlocks down below, which is kind of like the next movie I'm going to talk about. But yeah, it's curious that such a popular type of story, whether book, movie, TV series.
I think it reminds you that every silver lining has a dark cloud.
We'll have to think about that. More mulled wine now.
So we go from that depressing thought. And honestly, listeners, I give it a go. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
It's beautifully filmed, and it's a great story that really makes you think after you watched it.
Yeah, we wouldn't steer you wrong. They're all good movies.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not rom-coms. Maybe they're not Miracle on 42nd Street.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
No, it's more like Murder on 42nd Street.
Yeah.
So we go from here again. Most of these movies are in the future, eh? It's like the future is dark.
Yep.
The
It's
future
dark,
is
it seems. Yeah, dark.
We've turned off the lights. So Dave, for your next one, we're going into Elysium.
Elysium. Yeah, this is from 2013, starring the sturdy Matt Damon, he from Saving Private Ryan and the Bourne series of movies, and Jodie Foster in a really interesting turn of roles here. I remember when I heard this movie came out, I thought of the line that Russell Crowe delivers in Gladiator, where he's bucking up his troops before the big battle, and he's suggesting, look, a lot of you are going to die, and if that happens, it's kind of good news. He says something like, if you find yourself in green fields, the smell of olive groves and all that, don't worry, boys, you're in Elysium, and you're already dead. Now, I didn't look up the word Elysium to see what it means, and I thought, I'll leave that a bit I think Richard's doing it now. So we fast forward to 2013, or 12 rather, from the same guy who made District 9, and also starring, or co-starring, Charlton Copley, who was the government bureaucrat in District 9, who really shines in this movie. And I should point out, I think actually an uncredited star of this movie is Charlton Copley's beard. I think if it wasn't, I'm not kidding, if it wasn't nominated for an Academy Award, it should have been. It's so thick, it's so bristly, it's so dense. I can grow a beard reasonably quickly, but it's nothing. It's like a baby Lala beard compared to Charlton Copley's beard.
Do you think birds could possibly make a nest in there?
They'd be lost. You'd be lost. In fact, if you do see this movie, and you should see this movie, try to imagine Kruger, who is his character, beardless. It wouldn't work. Anyways, I wanted to get that aside. I vote for Copley's beard for Academy. I think Richard's got Elysium, meaning...
Hot off the press, Elysium is the Elysium field. It's the ideal afterlife,
The ideal afterlife.
It's their version of, I guess, heaven.
That makes sense, and thus makes sense in this movie, because in this movie, in this dystopian future, we find that the wealthy people, the rich upper crust, whatever you want to call them, have all decamped from the surface of our planet, and they're living in a lovely space habitat that can be seen from the Earth. It looks like a big wagon
Just a
wheel.
reminder.
It's a reminder. Yeah, we're up here. It's kind of like the world's most impressive gated community / border wall / whatever you want to call it, security system. They're separated from the unwashed masses by kilometers of open space. Down on the Earth, we have the vast majority of society living like dirt bags, shitty lives and shitty apartments, and they're doing all the industrial work. Up top, everybody speaks with a weird French accent. Not that there's anything weird about French, but it's like they laid that in, like those mid-Atlantic accents that William F. Buckley Jr. and Julia Child and Katharine Hepburn had. What is that? It's sort of half American, half British, and kind of snobby in an undefined way. They're speaking kind of a French accent up there. Everybody's dressed impeccably. Everybody seems to live at cocktail parties. Jodie Foster seems to be the head of security up there or something like that. And she's just queen bitch in this movie, playing not really typical part for her, but she's fantastic. And a guy called William Fichtner, I think the actor is, plays the CEO of a large corporation that's responsible for defending Elysium against encroachment from the millions of turds and turdlets living down below.
The mighty unwashed.
Yeah, the mighty unwashed. Having said that, we run into Matt Damon, and Matt Damon is a service person, works in a factory. We're introduced to the security services rather quickly. We realize everybody is totally tagged and under surveillance. Like Matt Damon, who's bald in this movie, is just going to work one morning, and he gets stopped by this robot police officer. We talked about robots a couple of episodes ago. And he goes, "Oh, good morning, officer." And the robot says something like, "Paroli 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's in the bag?" And Matt Damon, attempting to make a joke, says hair care products. He's bald. This offends the robot police officer. Before he knows it, he's being taken off to some security station, and he's trying to explain himself to this other stupid half robot head thing. The robot is saying it's an offense to, basically
misrepresent
or make a joke around with, with robots, with us. Matt Damon is saying, I was just employing a little humor. The robot keeps saying, "Stop talking." And he's basically telling him what's going to happen. I think he gets an 8-month extension on his parole, and he goes, "Hey, come on, stop talking." And he goes on like this. It's really horrible. He goes back to work, does Matt Damon, and we learn a little bit about his life. There's a young girl that he grew up with. We see some flashbacks, and now she's a grown woman. He runs into her in a hospital, seems to want to rekindle that relationship. He winds up in an industrial accident. He is forced to go inside a vacuum chamber of some sort in the factory where he works and gets a lethal dose of radiation. And in typical fashion, typical heartless fashion, he's told, "You've received a lethal dose by like in a robot, you have 5 days to live, please take these pills. And like, he said, sign here for the pills, and he can't even, so he realizes he's finished. The other aspect of the story that we kind of have to absorb is that up on Elysium, with all the great champagne and hors d'oeuvres and all that stuff, and food and air conditioning and fragrance and all that, they have med bays, they're called, where you can basically put a human in who almost has anything wrong with them, and the med bay will reconstruct them. This luxury, or this perhaps necessity, not available to the unwashed, filthy
Earthers.
seething earthers. So Matt Damon wants to get up there and cure himself. And so he goes to see a friend of his who's kind of a gang member. We imagine this is maybe where he got into trouble with the law before. And he tells him, look, man, I've got like 5 days to live. I want to get up there and save myself. And he's like, I'll do anything you want. And the guy, I think it's Max is his name, winds up having his boys strap the now weak from radiation, Matt Damon, into this exosuit. So suddenly he's got droid-like...
He becomes RoboCop.
Yeah.
Robo-Paroli.
Robo-Paroli. He's got... sounds like an Italian. Right? Robo-Paroli. Right? I love her. He's now got droid-like powers, and he's going to, go and get himself well up on Elysium. At the same time, the William Fichtner character, Carlisle, I think he's called, has come down to Earth as briefly as he can. He tells someone at some point, don't breathe on me. Like, he's just come down to inspect the plant where Matt Damon's injury took place and see what the hell happened. Then he's going to go back up to Elysium. And what's in his head, slightly out of order here, is download information that will allow him to reboot the computers on Elysium and allow Jodie Foster to take power. She's in a power struggle with the new president up there. I kind of got that in sequence. Okay, so we've got William Fichtner. He's down on Earth. He's carrying this enormous amount of valuable data. Matt Damon wants to get up to Elysium to help themselves get going. They shoot down Fichtner's aircraft. And the idea is they're going to download the data out of Fichtner's head, Carlisle's head as the character, into Matt Damon's head, and he'll be able to save all the horrible, filthy, unwashed masses and use Elysium's technology to make their lives better. Jodie Foster, up on Elysium, is so enraged by this that she gets her man Kruger, who had recently been deactivated for some reason. He says, listen, I need you to get back, online and get after this guy and stop him. And thus begins this terrific battle between Sharlto Copley's beard and Matt Damon and his guys, with some amazing shootouts with the droids and great technology. And Copley's out of control in this movie. He talks English, but with a heavy South African accent, peppered with South African expressions that you don't understand. In fact, I like to put on the... Subtitles. And I don't even thought he was calling people boykies and bits and stuff. And you don't know what he means, but they sound great. And he's nasty and he's horrible. Yeah. They head up to Elysium and all kinds of hell breaks loose up there. Their shuttle crashes into one of the rich houses and there's trouble. And anyways, at one point, they're fighting in this aircraft are Matt Damon and Sharlto Copley. And Matt Damon lets off a grenade and blows off Copley's face, literally. But no worry, they get him into a med bay. He's in there saying his face is gone. It's a big mess, but his brain's still functioning. And so they put him, so the boss is going to be pissed off about I can't do the accent. Put him in the med bay.
But is his beard saved?
Here's the thing. The beard comes back better than before because until that point in the movie, his beard had been kind of like a dark brown, black, but it would seem to be flecked with gray. Comes out of the med bay, fully reconstructed. He looks like a young man. His beard is jet black.
Grecian Formula 16.
Grecian, ready to go. Exactly. So it was a rebirth for the beard. Anyways, the movie kind of rushes toward its conclusion with Matt Damon trying to save himself, his friend from his childhood days and her daughter who has leukemia. I mentioned them earlier, trying to save themselves in a med bay. Jodie Foster loses her life. And everything starts to fall apart up on Elysium. And in the final act of the movie, Matt Damon is able to take the data that's been inside his head, load it into the mainframe at Elysium, and lo and behold, bingo boingo, all of the citizens on Earth are recoded as citizens of Elysium. And
they send down the med bays.
They send down the med bays, and you realize that things have taken a turn for the better. A bit of a sledgehammer metaphor here. Planet covered in basic regular people, and all the wealthy elites living up in a spaceship. And not so different to what we saw in the Time Machine, as mentioned, and not so far-fetched when you consider some of the news about billionaire bunkers in the last few years being built in the wake of COVID-19 to just allow these people to insulate themselves from scum like you and I. Well, I shouldn't say that. scum like me. Well, that's kind of where we are. Yeah.
I guess to them
Yeah.
we'd be the mighty unwashed. So.
We would be the mighty.
Although
the
I
mighty
did shower this
unwashed.
morning.
Yeah, I did too. Or was that yesterday?
Good movie, and you got to suspend your disbelief a little bit as all of a sudden all of these med bays, that scene at the end where just all the med bays go down, like they have enough for everybody on Earth. But it's a cute feeling.
It didn't really make sense, but it felt good temporarily.
It's a bit like the end of Total Recall when Schwarzenegger's on Mars. He's dying and his face is turning the big bug eyes, and all of a sudden the big technology starts terraforming the Earth. And within minutes you can breathe.
Yeah, really worth a watch. Lots of fun, lots of explosions, and Copley's beard.
Copley's beard, baby.
What a masterpiece. So, Richard,
Squirrels and all.
Appropriately enough, given that the snowy season is about to start here in Canada, and we're going to be under ice for 6 months, talking about Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer, the movie, not the series, because they did, I believe there's a series that's out now. I don't know if it's finished or if it's still in production. Snowpiercer, 2013, same year as Elysium, starring Chris Evans, Tilda Swinton. Tilda Swinton is just hilarious in this one. And Ed Harris.
And can you say the name of the director? Because I just want to hear you say
it. You bastard.
Directed by?
Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah.
Changing my name.
So the premise is 17 years, it's 2031, so not far from now, 17 years after an attempt to stop global warming, I love this, via stratospheric aerosol injection backfires and it creates a new ice age.
Ooh.
All the people on Earth end up living inside a train that circumnavigates the globe.
I did see this, but so long ago I don't remember. Yeah, that's it. They're just circling, right?
Just there.
Yeah, just there.
Just there. Humanity lives on a train that circumnavigates the globe. Because that was the answer.
Hopefully there's a bar car.
Oh, there is. You wouldn't build a shelter. No, it has to be a train that is just running around the Earth. And so you have, again, front of the train, good people, back of the train, mighty unwashed, a little bit like Elysium, but it's Elysium in the linear instead of being up and down. Our main heroes here are obviously in the back of the train, very slum-like. People come and give them their lovely Soylent-like food, these like cubes, jelly-like cubes, and this is what they eat. Treated very poorly. There's an older guy in there who tells them that they need to take over the train because this is what they need to do to, whatever. Oh, yeah. And so the whole movie takes place as them planning their way from the back of the train to the front of the train where they're supposed to meet I forget if he's called the conductor, played by Ed Harris. Right, who's like the guy, the great, and they talk him about the great. I can't remember his name in the show now.
The Great Kazoo.
The great Wilford, who created the train and created the technology that makes it run, and that it runs, forever. And as they're going, they notice that one of the characters says to them, wait as we pass such and such a spot and you'll see. And he says, do you see anything? He says, I see, the tail of a plane or something. And he's like, yeah, well, 7 years ago, we couldn't see the tail of a plane. So the premise is that the Earth is warming and that the ice caps, things are melting and they're starting to see stuff. And as they go around, they see, I think they start to see dead people in the snow where they were buried before. So they're starting to see that slowly the Earth is warming. There may be a chance for survival outside of the train.
Okay.
So the premise is this series of battles as they work their way from the back of the train to the front of the train. And there's Tilda Swinton, who's kind of like the PR chick in this completely insane role. She is just pulled tight and it's a crazy freaking role. And she's like nasty and doesn't understand their plight, and it's just like she's so caught in the privileges that she has. It's such a caricature of a character. It's beautiful. And they fight their way through and see battles, and they come to trains that have animals and plants, and it's like it doesn't make sense. You're on a train, and then there's like clubs as you go through. There's like a whole series. It's like a nightclub as they're going through, and they're basically eating gelatin cubes, and they have no idea what the hell the gelatin cubes are made of, and eventually you find out it's crickets. Crickets are thrown into this mass thing. They're ground up and turned into gelatin cubes, and then they pass to the back. But meanwhile, the people in the front have these lovely meals with all sorts of food. There's a school where the children are all taught about the great Wilbur and the mighty unwashed, and they make their way through this, and they try to... It's just a battle constantly as they get to the front, where he eventually meets Wilbur, the conductor. I'm skipping a whole bunch of parts, but it's essentially a whole bunch of battles. I'm not going to describe describe them all as they make their way there, along with, a couple of the helpers are an addict and his daughter who are trying to get out. They've seen the possibility of the future outside, and they're fighting their way constantly through. He's got the explosive. One guy's been collecting explosives so they can blow a hole and get into the front part of the train. And he meets the conductor who invites him to this lavish meal and basically says, "I've been waiting for you. It's time for you to take over for me. And this will be your life now. You will be the conductor." And
this is Ed Harris surrendering control?
Yes, this is the Ed Harris character. You come to this part where you realize there's a portion of the train that needs to be maintained. And it can only be maintained by little children because that's all that fits under the boards of the train.
No.
And this is why they steal the children from the back of the train.
So no.
Yeah. It's just any bad thing that can happen to people happens in there. Assassinations. Oh, there's a thing where if you've been bad, that's right. If you've been bad, punishment is they stick your arm out the window. There's a hole. They stick your arm out the window. Your arm freezes solid. They take your arm back in and they smash it with a hammer. And then your arm thaws, and of course the pain because now your arm's been smashed. It's like those lovely things when they put roses in liquid nitrogen and then they smash it and it shatters like glass. They do that with people's arms and stuff. And that's
this stuff.
It's fantastic. Long story short, they derailed the train, explosion, ruin it for everybody.
Richard, go long. I went long in the last two, man. Go long.
They make an explosion. The train derails. Our main character and the daughter of the guy make it off. They're the only two who seem to make.
Okay.
It's implied. Maybe I don't know if the others survive. Parts of the train crash down. And as they go there, they see polar bears. And so they thought life had been extinct. Of course, they're out. They don't have really winter jackets. They don't have anything. I guess it's the rebuilding. The hope is there that we're seeing polar bears. Life has come back to Earth.
I see, right.
The possibility.
Yeah.
You don't see shelters. You don't see anything. But that's the hopeful part of it. Now, I don't know if in the TV show they've expanded on that and it's still 17 seasons on a train, or have they made it off the train? I don't know.
It makes you wonder how you can take an idea like that and prolong it for 4 or 5 seasons. To me, that's a 2-hour idea.
Yeah. I love the message that here's a train with all of humanity. Yeah. And if you play your cards right, you can blow the shit out of it. Everybody dies except the two of you. Isn't that fantastic? That is hopeful. That is a message to carry into the new year.
No more rush hour traffic. No more long lineups at the supermarket.
And you got all the polar bear you want.
Yeah.
Right? You just don't need the livers.
Or they've got all the you want sort of thing. I mean, the way those things work. Yeah.
So that ends our romp through the darkness that is dystopia. And we thought if these short little bursts of movies, you watch an hour and a half, then you cry thinking of the future.
Yeah.
If you're the kind who really likes your darkness in just unending
prolonged misery,
like a boil that will not be lanced.
Ooh.
We thought we'd take a look at was probably, one of the most dystopian of all TV shows, The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, terrific.
They're going into their 5th season. The next season is going to be the last one.
And it should be said, that feels about right in this case, despite what we're kidding about here. And I'm glad they're going to wind it down after 6 and not do what The Walking Dead did, which I think is still running.
Yeah,
I think we still don't know.
No, it ended.
It finally ended?
Yeah, they stopped walking because they're dead.
Snoozing dead. Eh?
So, the premise is pretty much like Margaret Atwood's great book, The Future. Something has happened. 99% of all women are sterile, can't have children. So the ones who do are taken into schools or whatever and become handmaidens, which are then, how can we say? It's not
posted to the
That's
homes
not gross enough.
It's not.
Posted sounds like, I've been posted to the Middle East.
You're right, it does it, yeah.
Yes, my new posting, I'll be
Poured out? Can you say that? Yeah.
Poured out is probably the right
it.
way. And that comes up a lot. You see it in the series. To the house of the people, the wives who can't have children. And then, of course, as most of you may know, there's a whole ceremony where the commanders or the husbands will then try to impregnate the handmaid. But the idea of it is set in a future where there's been some sort of war, and most of the U.S. is now Gilead, this very
religious theocracy, right? A dictatorship, really.
It would be like our version of what we perceived as, think of Iran in its day with the Ayatollahs and the very religious forward kind of countries. This would be like and giant quotation marks. I'm going to use 4 fingers on each hand.
I see that.
Christian theocracy taking over, Christian religion, and a lot of this, it's just so disgusting to watch.
As photographers, I know we both enjoy the incredible graphic quality of the cinematography. Lots of use of overhead shots. The handmaids' costumes, the red capes and the white hats are shot sometimes in very geometric beauty. It's, I have to say, I think one of the best looking series I can think of.
Costume design is just amazing.
Costume design's over the top.
And when the handmaids go out, they've got these big hats they wear that really with blinders on the side. So you can't see what's happening. You know, there might be people hanging on the wall or there might be a shooting here, but you can't see. You can only see directly what's in front of you.
Kind of like The Flying Nun, but far less fun to watch.
Less flying, more dying.
More nunning. Yeah, more dying. Yeah. Do you remember The Flying Nun?
Oh, yeah, of
Sally
course.
Field?
Sally Field, yeah.
I haven't seen it since, but yeah.
La Sœur Volante. That's how I knew it in
really?
French. Yeah.
It was translated as well.
Everything was back then because, there wasn't a huge Quebec film or TV industry at the time.
English Canada either. We had like what was it, the Beachcombers?
Oh, yeah.
And
the
dude's name everyone had to, Dr. Dressup.
Oh, Mr. Dressup.
Mr. Dressup.
Dr. Dressup was his son. He had to do the show to put his son through medical school.
Get the odd feeling if someone pitched a TV show to kids today called Mr. Dressup, they'd wind up somewhere way off to the side and never heard from again. Hi, I've got an idea.
Yeah. Mind you, we ended up with the Teletubbies, but that's British.
So we did, that's right.
So
sorry about that one.
Yeah, those seasons, it's just been a long time since I've seen a show or a movie that consistently makes me so angry about the possibility of what's going on. And I know it seems a bit far-fetched, but when you look at moves, I mean, this came out right after Trump became president, and you're starting to see this shift in the U.S., probably parts of Canada too, towards this very right-wing, very extremist kind of mentality. We're seeing a lot of it during the COVID protests, the anti-vaxxers, where everything is becoming very, very clearly black and white, which you see often in the series too.
It's a cautionary tale for sure. Yeah. I think she wrote it in the mid-'80s. She's a Canadian author, but chose to base her story in the United States, having undergone this revolution 40 years later. A lot of what she said, though dramatized in the context of the novel, you can kind of see the writing on the wall in some cases, And then you look at what happened in Italy this year with their far-right government, and this incident that happened in Germany earlier this week.
Oh my God, the coup.
The coup.
One of the minor princes tried to make a coup.
A minor prince, Reichsburger or something like that, trying to overthrow the government of Germany. That never goes well.
And I love this. And the way he's identified as a minor prince.
Yeah, minor prince. Yeah, thank God he wasn't a major. Like, where are the major princes?
I don't know.
Yeah.
A minor prince.
So yeah, Handmaid's Tale, fantastic. Probably of all the movies we've talked about, probably the one you're watching out there.
I would hope so. We've been binging it ever since it came out. We'll usually wait till the season comes out and then binge it all so we can get that full depression as much as possible injected directly into my dark soul.
Yeah.
Because I need to keep it black.
Full soul trampling, monochromatic depression.
Yeah, and if you've got time off during these holidays, if you're off for a week or two, depending how things are, it's a perfect time to completely darken your outlook.
Yeah, why waste your time in the sunshine or outside doing something positive?
And after that, you might burn the tree down.
Yeah, thank us for all that. So, are we coming to the end of our dystopian journey?
Today. There might be more dystopia.
We could be back. We're on YouTube now, kids, so you can contact us much easier than through the various podcast apps or sources. Let us know what you think. You want more misery?
We've got more.
We've got that. Want more music? We got that too. So let us know.
And we have some exciting episodes coming up soon. Stay tuned. Follow us.
Do you want to tease a bit?
If you want, go ahead.
No, I'm letting you tease. Tease me because I can't remember what we got in the can.
We've got a Gonzo episode.
That's true. Going to be talking about Hunter S. Thompson.
We have a music fan who's going to join us for part 3 on our rock and roll. That should be good.
A younger music fan.
Younger
than us, that is.
Yeah.
That covers most people, so yeah.
Yes, we've got something on the World's Fairs.
Yeah, the World's Fairs, Expo 67 here in Montreal, the 1939 New York World's Fair, really cool events. Yeah. Talk about that, and maybe look at Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, so he was called.
Subliminal advertising, are there naked ladies in your ice cubes? I don't know, maybe we'll cut that part out.
Let's go check. Tiny naked women frozen in my ice cubes, yeah. Too much mulled wine.
Too much
Way too much mulled wine.
Stay off the horn. See, these are the kind of things that we need to be chaperoned for.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. So 4 days till New Year's, right, Richard?
Yeah, that's right.
Any big plans?
Just cry in my sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you?
Probably going to pound my feet with a hammer. I have family up from Florida. Mayhaps we'll be getting together. If not, I don't know, just sleep and get up the next morning. It'll be 2023. I'm not sure. Haven't decided yet. The world's my oyster.
On that note, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Happy 2023.